Today, I have a special little guy. He's the red gobbo with a abominable snowman. So this particular mini is just adorable, and honestly, I can't help but giggle when I look at it. It is just too funny. We got like a mechanical little snowman guy here, a little Gretchen, and a grot throwing snowball bombs. So this should be fun. We got little grenades in the snow, and it is just, it's cute. It really is. Now, I have just primed this white specifically because, well, snow is mostly white, but I actually did not glue any of these little guys down. And unfortunately, I haven't had too much time to make a lot of longer videos with all the holiday stuff going on, family and everything else. So I actually might do this video in a couple different parts if I have to. Now, today is Christmas Eve, and I do not have the chance to paint him right away. I'm going to have to do him later on tonight, but if I can, I'm going to break it up into 3 different videos and do maybe the snowman and the base in 1, and then these guys in 2, depending on how long it takes me. But you guys should have some videos for Christmas tomorrow, which is awesome. Because what's better than morning cartoons? Obviously, miniature painting videos on YouTube. Come on. And if you really do like miniature painting videos on YouTube, make sure you guys subscribe, because I do put out videos every once in a while that are pretty long and very detailed. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely hit the like button on this one, if you like it, and subscribe. All right, now let's get into it. So I'm going to start off by doing all of the snow. So that's the snowman and some of the base, but I definitely want to see some shadows and all those little footprints and details. So I'm going to use some of this ash gray. Now this is basically just the lightest gray color that I have available next to white. So I'm going to use some of that, but I'm going to mix it with this bright sapphire just to give it a little bit more of a cool tone because, well, snow is cold. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this gray, just a little bit, and just a tinier amount of this blue. And I'm just going to mix them together. See if I like what I get. And if not, I could add some more blue or gray. It doesn't matter. See, I still think that's not cool enough. I think maybe a little more blue. And this is pretty much what color mixing's all about. I might want more blue than I want gray. Well, you just got to see how it looks. And I think that is coming together just fine. Oh, perfect. A nice light gray blue. So I'm pretty much just going to get in all of those little footprints and details and everything else. Even just the regular snow, I want to get that all in the bottom of all those little grooves and textures. So when we put our dry brush, we still see some of that blue gray left behind. So I'm going to leave everything else out though, like these little bombs, and I am going to paint the snowballs. Like I said, anything that is pretty much snow is getting coated in this bottom layer of blue. And I'm not going to worry too much about my edges on the base right now, just because I am going to go back in with white at some point so I can touch that up. Not a problem. I don't want to get these guys, however, because too many layers of paint, you lose some of the detail, and I do want to go over those with black and then some metallic. So that would be an unnecessary layer of paint, I suppose. But if you get a little bit on there, it's not a big deal. You're going to cover it up with 2 more layers anyways. So just want to even everything out. And I am putting a pretty heavy amount on here so I can make sure it isn't a dry brush. It's definitely a solid base coat. All the shadow snow colors, I suppose. So there were a couple areas that I wasn't able to get in there, so I kind of covered that stuff up a little bit, but that's okay. That's why we work backwards to forwards. And we're going to cover that up with black at some point and use metallic. So that'll be all right. So once I have my base covered with this blue, I do have enough to do the snowman and possibly the snowball on him. So we're going to do all of that in the same color, and I'm actually going to need something to hold him. I got something right here. Just put him right on there for a second. And I'm just going to coat him completely as well. So, not worry too much about those little details as well. They're going to be his little charcoal buttons, so those will be black. And that's my cat playing with her Christmas presents. Not sure if you can hear her meowing in the background. They all got new toys, so. And I'm pretty much just gonna coat him entirely. And I'm gonna do his little snowball the same blue. You guys can probably use a smaller brush for this if you're worried about overlapping paint. Me, I don't feel like changing brushes until I change the color. I'm also gonna do this like wintry smoke coming off of his little snowball bomb as well. I just want it all to look very cold. And there we go. There's the base coat to all of our snow. I think maybe he has a couple snowballs too. We'll make them the same color as well. Oh, these guys are adorable. You just want to make sure you get into all the little fingers where that snow is. And I think he's holding one underneath his chin too. It's definitely the texture of snow, so make it look like a little snowball bomb. All right, wait for that to dry, and then we can do some of our mechanical pieces on the base. So for the mechanical feats for the snowman and some of the grenades and the bells, I am going to use this matte black. This is just the primer that I normally use. For whatever reason, I favor this. It is very matte black. So it works very well for underneath metallics. So I'm basically just going to go in, and I'm not really going to get it on the blue base, but I am going to be as careful as I could. I can just put more blue over it if I mess it up. But I just want to paint just the pieces that are going to be metallic. So these little pieces that go in here for his little mechanical feet. And I do want to do this before I do the metallic. Just because if I get some of the metallic on the snow, it might just add to the sparkly snow effect. Not going to notice it as much. But if I dry brush over the metallic, you're not going to see the metallic as much. So like I said, I'm just going to be careful. Get into all of those grooves. And like I said, I'm going to do these bells metallic. Some of these grenades, the top of this grenade, that grenade, all of these little wiry tubes. There's some over on this side as well. I'm even going to do the inside of the clock, the outside ring. All of this is going to be black. So I'm going to paint these fine little details, these little tiny itty bitty pieces off camera real quick, and you guys can do the same. So one of the small details that I do want to point out is that I am doing the inside of that little clock ring, that little timer. It is a little tough to get in there, but I'm just doing the little inner edge right there. And it's okay if I get some on the inside of the clock. We are going to paint that a different color. But I just want to get a nice even ring around the inside. Just one of those little small detail things that you gotta kind of point out because you're unsure of, should I paint that part? Yeah, we're gonna paint that part. You guys could even get underneath as well of those little bells and do the same thing. And it's very hard to show you guys. But I just want to get underneath there the best I could. Just like that. Now that we have all of our metallic pieces primed in black, we're just going to paint the little black pieces on him, including his shoes. We're going to do those black like Santa Claus's shoes. So I'm just going to paint the top of his little snowball bomb here in black, because I definitely want that to be metallic. Let's make sure you get in that little ring. And the back of them. I know that is very, very small and hard to see. And like I said, I'm going to do his little shoes as well. So we're going to make those all black as well. So now that I have his little feet covered in black, I am going to do the same with him and this little tiny part right there or I want it to be metallic. So there's like a little ring around the top of that snowball before all that smoke stuff comes out. We're also going to paint that black. So I am going to do his little belt as well. That I'm going to make black, including the little star on the front. We're going to do that in gold. So that is going to be black. I figured I'd do that before I did his little shoes because I'm holding on to them. And I just want to make sure I get underneath that little edge underneath his belt buckle. There we go. So he's got a black belt like Santa Claus. And I'm also going to do his boots in black as well. Because we're going for very, very Christmassy. Santa Clausy. And I think he has little spikes in the back of his boots. We're going to make those black as well. We'll add some metallic to them as well. And if you look very closely, he has a tiny little pin in his mouth. We are actually going to make that black as well. Just want to make sure my paint is thin down enough to go over this little tiny detail. Very, very, very small, but noticeable. We're going to make that metallic as well. So a couple other things that I'm going to end up making gold are his little star on the top of his head here. So we're going to go ahead and paint that black. I'm just going to take the brush and I'm just going to gently glide across the top of that. I'm not going to worry too much about the sides of it. It's a very thin star, so as long as you see the top layers where we're going to put the metallic, that should be all right. So I'm actually just going in at an angle instead of at a point for that part. And another thing, this little clip that he's wearing with his little ammunition, I am also going to make that black. Just because his little ammunition I want to do in a couple different metallic colors. Maybe copper and bronze I think would be a fun change from all of the silver. So we're going to paint that as well. And I do like the idea of having gold stars. It is very Christmassy. So he does have another star here as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and paint that black, because we're going to make that gold. So I do want to go in the best I can and get the top of those little bullets. Just like that. Can't see past his little beard. His little Santa Claus beard. just want to get that other belt strap in there. And I do have this matte black watered down a little bit, so it's a lot easier to get into the little cracks. So if something's not very, very dark, just go over the center of it a little bit more and make it a little bit more prominent. So, and I'm going to do the same technique with this little guy here. I'm going to do the same with his little star. And like I said, just gently glide the brush over. And just like that. Just so that sticks out a little bit more. And I did forget about, well, I almost forgot about it. He does have a little gun back here. I also want to make that metallic as well. So I'm going to go ahead and paint that part as well. I'm not going to worry too much about this little ornament at the end. I think I'm just going to make that a fun color. Red, blue, or green, who knows? But I'm just going to paint that whole gun. I'm going to leave these little pockets the same color as his cloak, which is probably going to be brown. Knowing me, I like nice leather cloaks, so, or coats. And there you have it. His little gun is black now. So he should look something like this with all of our base coats. So for our snowman, he has a couple of spots that are going to just be black, which are his little coal buttons. So we're just going to paint those. And he is just going to come off of that for now, because he's dry. So I am going to get into the little sides of his buttons as well, just because they are some pretty chonky coal buttons. So missed a spot there. Do you hate when that happens? Alright, got his little buttons. And we're going to do his little coal eyeballs as well. So I'm just going to go around the outer ridge here. And if you see there's a little ridge underneath there, I'm also going to get that as well. So I just turn him a little more. Just going to go right around that little under ridge, little edge of his hat. His hat kind of sticks up a little bit more on this side. And I want to get this top plain as well. I do want to leave that ribbon a different color though, so we're going to leave that white. Maybe do that red or green or blue, you never know. So it's kind of hard to see on the one side, but his hat does go up just a little bit right here, right before that ribbon. So we're going to paint that part black as well. And just come down a little bit. Right there. Where his hat kind of folds in on that ribbon a little bit. And then I'm just going to do the rest of the top of the hat. So you can see where this ribbon ends here. Just going to go along that. And I am going to leave this skull white. Because we're going to make him skull colored. Alright, now that we have his hat painted black, there are some more mechanical pieces on him back here. And we are actually going to paint those black as well. So I'm just going to go in and go along and just paint this whole section. And there's a little edge right there as well that I'm going to paint black. So we can do that as metal. So now that we got all of our base coats in black, I do want to go back into his little smoke with a little bit of that gray we used earlier, just unmixed with no blue, and just kind of go over the bottom of that a little bit. Not completely. I do want to leave some of the blue behind, but I just want to do the very bottom just a little bit with this light gray. And just kind of blend my way up. Just like that. So I just want a little tiny bit of gray there. And I can even take a little bit of black. Make a slightly bit of darker gray. And go right near that black base. And just make things a little bit darker. Not by much, but just blend a little bit of that dark gray. And you can use a pre-mixed darker gray if you like. It's just a little bit easier for me when I just have it right in front of me. So I'm just going to take a little bit and just mix that in to give it a little bit of a darker color. Here and there, not everywhere. And I'm mostly staying at the bottom with this darker color. It's almost like a heavy dry brush. Still want to see some of that lighter gray in the bottom, but I do want to see some of that charcoal color as well. So he's going to look something like that. Alright, so I blended that a little bit better off camera so you guys can see. Basically just darker at the bottom, lighter at the top, and I left a little bit of that blue there. So that's what he'll look like. Got his little gun in the back. And all of these pieces should be black. His little feet and stars and things should be black. And we're ready to move on to the next step. So the next color I'm going to be using is Pure Red by Army Painter. Now, as much as I love doing leather coats and things like that, he's too adorable not to make look like Santa Claus. And I feel like a lot of you guys would be disappointed if I didn't make him look like Santa Claus. So we're going to go in with our Pure Red as a base coat. And I'm going to do his little coat in that color. So this is just your normal primary red, basically. And I am going to avoid his little white tufts at the end. We are going to go over that with something, but it's going to be different than how we did the snow. So I'm going to go ahead and coat his entire coat, not the inside so much, but I am going to get the outside. So I am going to leave that little ridge there white, but I am going to go in here, and I know it's very hard to see. I'm just going to do that little edge right there on the inside. So here's a better spot. You can see that very slight edge that I'm just going to do here. Just on the very inside. Just going to take the side of the brush and just slightly go over the inside. Just like that. So you have that like little lip where the two pieces of fabric meet. And that kind of cleans up things too as well when you do that. This part doesn't really have that much of a line difference like over here did. But there's a couple spots that I messed up. Just go back over that with some matte white. But I am also going to do his little hat too. And his little pants. And one of the reasons I did not glue him to the base was it's kind of hard to get his little butt. So I figured I'd wait and just paint it separately. Makes it a little bit easier. And one of the things I did leave white was that little ripped pocket where his gun is. I just wanted the inside of that to be the same color as the inside of the rest of his coat. So now that we have our red gobbo, get it? I used the name. We're going to actually paint him red as well. Well, he's green in the picture, but I think he would look better red only because they're both going to have green skin, and I personally think it's just a little too much green. So I'm going to go ahead and paint his clothes red as well. So while I'm doing his hat, I noticed he has like a little band around his star. I'm actually going to go back in and fix that with white. I'm going to leave that band white, and I'm also going to leave the top of his little cloak here white. But I am going to go underneath and paint the rest of it red. So now that his cloak is also officially Santa Claused, I'm actually going to go into this clock. I want the outside of this clock to be red as well. So I'm just going to be careful and just get those spots. Don't want to get too much on that outer ridge, because we are going to put some metallic there. I'm just going to do my best to get right in and underneath that little bell. Just like that, and a little bit in the top here. And it does help if your paint is watered down for this. It'll fit right in there. Just like that. And this spot on the back. Back might be a little tricky. We just want to get right in between underneath that bell. And I believe that's just a little metal panel that I missed a spot of black. So we're going to leave that. But that's what our little clock is going to look like for now. And our snowman has a little candy cane. So I am going to take a little bit of red paint and just put some candy cane stripes right across. And I'm going to kind of go in the direction of the candy cane as well when I do this. Just like that. I do just want to follow that pattern on the back. I just want to fix that one line. So I just want those little lines to meet. And this part is a little bit tricky. I'm going to have to go in with a little bit of white paint and just fix it up just a little bit so it looks a little bit nicer like that. All right, now that we have a much better candy cane, we can move on to some other colors. Now, one of the things I'm going to want to do is brown. A couple of things in here, especially on the snowman. I do want to make his little arms brown like tree branches and then add a little bit of green on the end. So I'm going to go with this dark brown. It happens to be an oak brown, even though we're using it for what's probably a spruce in all actuality. So I'm actually just going to take a little bit of that brown and just do his little branches. And I'm going to coat the entire spot. Even where I'm going to put the green, I do want that brown underneath. Might be a little too much paint. And I want to get it right to the edge there. Oh, those little branches. Just like that. And do the same thing to the other side. Like I said, we're even going to coat the tips where we're going to put that little bit of green, because you want to see that underneath. There we go. We have our snowman branches. So we're almost done with all of our major base coats, but the one thing we have left is his skin tone. Now I'm going to go in with a nice goblin green. I figured the name was appropriate for his skin color. So, and that is definitely not mixed well. I think this one is an older army painter. This is what the newer ones look like. If you guys are wondering if there's a major difference, there actually is. The older one I noticed is a lot more watery. As you can tell, like I'm shaking this bottle and it still. So, but the newer one, however, isn't as watered down. I definitely have to use a lot more water with the newer ones, in case anybody was wondering. All right, now that I got that paint nice and mixed up, I'm going to go in and I'm just going to do all of his skin tone. So his hands, his face, pretty much anything that's going to be green, which is his skin. That's what I'm going to be painting now. And this is just going to be our base coat. So I do want to be careful with his little fingers and just gently glide the brush across his little fingertips. I don't want to get too much on that snowball. And if you miss a little spot, that's okay. We're going to put a green wash over his skin as well. And that'll kind of help fill in all of those little spaces. And give it a little bit more detail as well. And there are a little bit of mechanical things near his eye as well that I'm probably going to go back in and get with black. And do those in a nice metallic color. I'm not going to worry too much about his teeth, because we're going to do those a different color. All right, he's starting to look more and more like a gobbo. And I'm basically just going to use the goblin green on his skin tone as well. So get his little ears and face, just like we did the other one. It's a little hard to see, but I'm just getting his skin tone. Same technique as the other guy. All right, we're officially done with all of our major base coats. So all we got left is some washes, some dry brushing, and some fine detailing. So I'm going to let these guys dry for a little bit, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to do some washes. So now that all my base layers are dry, I'm just going to go in with some matte white. And this is going to be a dry brush. And just kind of glide over all of this detail here. And I want to leave a lot of those footprints behind. I mostly want everything to be white though. Even the snowballs. Just a nice dry brush. Got a little bit on the inside, but you really do want to leave a lot of that detail with that dry brush. So that's what it's going to look like. And that'll just show a lot of the texture in the snow as well, instead of just being plain white. Just aggressively dry brush it. Whoop. Sorry, bumped my camera. But yeah, you guys get the idea. So this is what our finished product should look like. And at this point, you're pretty much done with the majority of the base. So you can probably go in on the sides and fix any of that you need to as well. So I'm just going to go around and clean that up. And I'm also going to go over our snowman a little bit. Just make sure that's a lot drier of a brush. And I'm just going to cover him up with that outside matte white. I'm going to try to get in close to his little buttons as I could. A little bit of a dry brush on those isn't going to hurt too much. As a matter of fact, a very, very, very light dry brush over those. Just like that. I'm going to do it to his eye. Just a very, very light amount. Just so you see some of those like little details here and there. And I am going to actually dry brush over the little details in his face as well. Just because those are going to be a different color, and a little bit of that white is going to help those other colors show up. So we should have something like this so far. And I am going to take a little bit of that white dry brush to the snowballs over here as well. Just a very, very, very light bit right in the front. I don't want to get too much on anything else. I do want to fix this one little spot. There's a little red there. There we go. Just like that. And I'm going to do the same one to here. And just gently dry brush the inside of that snowball. And I'm actually going to take a little bit of that white and just put it on the very edge, just like that, of that smoke, and on the back. So before I go any further, I do want to just go around and fix all of the little black spots that I'm not happy with. Like, I do think his little charcoal eyes do need to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to go back in a little bit, and I think I'm going to do like a dark gray dry brush over them. I think that would actually be a little bit better. So I apologize for that. And it's just very hard to get in those little spaces with the dry brush evenly. So I'd rather just fix it really quick rather than leave it. So just gonna go over those spots, make them look like nice charcoal buttons again. And any other spots that I seem to get a little bit of white on here and there. Just like that. So the next dry brush that I want to do is a little bit of this ash gray. I just want to show the detail a little bit where the white fur is around his coat. So I'm just going to take a very small amount of that and just dry brush along where that white is, just to show a little bit more of the texture. And I know that's even hard for you guys to see on camera as well, but you really don't want the gray too dark. You just want it dark enough just to see a little bit of that fuzzy texture here and there. So I'm going to go in everywhere where he has that fur and just dry brush some of that light gray onto all of that. And I'm going to do that to his beard as well. I definitely want the color of that to stand out a little bit. And like I said, I know it's a little hard for you guys to see because it is a very, very light gray. I just don't want to completely leave it white. So now that we got the majority of our dry brushing out of the way, I do want to put a wash over his coat. And I am going to go with a soft tone. This is just a light brown wash. And I'm just going to take a little bit of that because he's been blowing up chimneys all day. So he's not going to be very clean. So we're just going to take a little bit of that and we're just going to put it all around his coat. And the reason why I chose the soft tone is because I didn't want it super dark. I still want to see that bright Santa Claus red coat, but I do want all of these little details behind here, these little pockets, to stand out a lot more. And that's going to help us with that. And I don't want to get too much underneath where that little white area is. I just want to stay right on top. So just get all of the red coated with that wash. And that's going to give it a lot more detail. So that is what he is going to look like with the wash. As you can see, a lot more detail in that coat pocket and fabric folds. I'm going to also do the same thing to him. So I'm just going to go in all of the red areas and just highlight all those details with the wash. And there he is. You can see a lot more detail. So the next wash I'm going to be doing is Athonian Camo Shade, and that's just your basic green wash. This is one of my favorites, even though this bottle design is not, because I broke it. But I'm just going to take a little bit of that, and I'm just going to go in these little areas here and drop some of that wash in where his skin tone is. Just so you can see a little bit more of the details in that as well. This is a little bit easier than the actual paint because the wash kind of just fits right in there. Just like that. And I am going to take a little bit and put in his face. And as you can see, that fills in all of the little spaces. And I'm going to do the same with his hands. There's a little tiny ear. Put a little dot of that on that. He has little earrings there too we're going to have to do in silver. I do want to get it on his fingertips. I just don't want to get it too much near the snowball. And that should be good for that. And I'm going to do the same thing to him. I'm going to get the back of his little ears as well. Just like that. Well, alright guys, that's the end of today's video. Stay tuned for part 2 where we do all of the fine detailing. And happy holidays, Merry Christmas from Chloe's Magic Minis, and I will see you guys next time. Hope you guys all enjoy your holiday. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, if you really like the video.